Welcome back to Ghost Stories of the Battles, where we delve into the eerie echoes of history and unravel dark tales from our past. Today, we explore the haunted grounds of Dachau, the first ever Nazi concentration camp, where the remnants of anguish still linger. Did you know that Dachau was not only a place of suffering, but also a training ground for the horrors that would unfold throughout Europe? Imagine walking through the camp and hearing whispered screams from those who never left. How deep does the horror run? Is it possible the spirits of the past are desperate to tell their stories? Established in 1933, Dachau became a model for subsequent concentration camps under the Nazi regime. It was a harbinger of unimaginable suffering, where countless lives were lost within its barbed wire confines. The camp stands as a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty, and the echoes of despair reverberate through time. As we set the atmosphere, picture Dachau's somber grounds, crumbling buildings silhouetted against a gray sky, rusting barbed wire glinting ominously, and a chilling wind that seems to carry the whispers of despair. The musty smell of decaying wood fills the air, mingling with an eerie silence broken only by distant echoes. The oppressive heaviness of the atmosphere feels like a weight on your chest, urging you to remember the stories entwined in this place. Join us as we uncover the terrifying tales hidden within the shadows of Dachau. Story 1. Whispers of the Forgotten. Walter had always been a student of history, never faltering in his belief that to understand the future, one must first grasp the depth of the past. Today he stood at the gates of Dachau, the first Nazi concentration camp established in 1933. It was a chilling morning, mist swirling around the dilapidated barracks like phantoms rising from the earth itself. The air was taut with silence, as if the camp held its breath in anticipation of Walter's footsteps, each one echoing on the cold stone ground. He was not just a visitor, he was a seeker, driven by a need to uncover the tales of bravery and tragedy that lived within these haunted walls. As he wandered past rusted barbed wire and the crumbling edifices that had witnessed unimaginable suffering, Walter couldn't shake the sensation that he was not alone. The echoes of the past felt palpable, clinging to him, whispering secrets he desperately wanted to hear. He stepped into one of the cold, musty barracks, where the remnants of wood lay scattered like fallen soldiers, the air thick with the weight of memories. The faint light filtered through the grimy windows, casting long shadows that danced with the wind. Walter had come to Dachau to conduct research for his articles on historical memory, but he felt beneath the surface something far deeper, a raw emotion that seeped from the very soil of the camp. Here, the ghosts of those who had suffered seemed to weave a delicate tapestry of stories, begging to be uncovered, to be remembered. And as he stood there, shivering slightly in the cold embrace of the morning, he could almost hear their whispers. As Walter ventured deeper into the barracks, the whispers grew clearer, coaxing him to follow their haunting melody. He turned a corner and saw a small, tattered diary tucked within an old wooden crate, covered in dust but somehow still alive with possibility. With trembling hands, he opened it, the brittle pages crackling beneath his fingertips. The handwriting was elegant yet jagged, each stroke a testament to the fragility of life within these walls. The first entry he read transported him back to the chilling winter of 1940. It spoke of a young man named Jacob, who had been arrested for speaking out against the regime. Walter could feel the boy's fear vibrating from the pages as he described his first days in the camp, nights filled with the piercing cries of tortured souls, and days spent in the punishing sun, stripped of dignity. As Walter continued to read, the diary became a gateway into the camp's harrowing past. He was gripped by the narrative of friendship that blossomed amidst despair, where prisoners were each other's lifelines. Flashbacks enveloped him as he imagined Jacob and his friends huddling together, whispering their dreams of freedom and peace in the dead of night. The desperation of their situation clawed at Walter's heart, and he found himself gasping for breath. Overwhelmed by the cruelty of fate that had imprisoned so many innocent lives. And then it happened. Shadows flickered behind him, teasing the edges of his vision. He spun around, heart racing, but there was nothing there, only the echo of silence that seemed to envelop him like a shroud. But the whispers continued, now rising to a crescendo, filled with anguish and desperation. Walter felt an urgent need to listen, to be a part of whatever story was unfolding. He closed his eyes and focused, letting the whispers wash over him, and suddenly he was not in Dachau anymore. He found himself standing in the barracks, just as it was decades ago. He could see Jacob and his friends, their faces gaunt yet filled with the flickers of hope. They huddled around a makeshift fire, sharing stolen tales of their lives before the camp. Walter could hear Jacob's voice rich and bold as he recounted memories of a forgotten garden where the sun shone brightly and laughter blossomed like wildflowers. But the scene shifted abruptly, the weight of despair crashing down around him. Alongside the warmth of camaraderie, he witnessed the harshness of reality. Soldiers stormed the barracks, faces twisted in malice, while screams filled the air like rain. Walter's heart pounded in his chest as the shadows ushered him deeper into Jacob's world, past the laughter and into the cold grip of terror. He witnessed the breaking of bonds as hope disintegrated. He felt the weight of despair pressing against him, the cries of those who had succumbed to fear ringing in his ears. Nearby, a figure hunched over, shaking with silent sobs. Walter reached out, instinctively wanting to comfort the lost soul, but his hand passed through like mist. As he read more entries, the diary became a visceral experience, a conduit for the pain and suffering that permeated the camp. Walter could feel the despair of families torn apart, friendships severed by brutality, and the relentless hunger pangs that gnawed at their insides. The ink began to bleed as the emotional imagery flooded Walter's mind, a haunting tapestry of grief, threaded with the spectral fingers of the past. With each heartfelt entry, Walter lost himself more to the suffering that lingered in the air. The line between reality and the echoes of history grew thin, and he could almost hear Jacob pleading from the corners of his mind, "Remember us." He could sense the essential task that fell upon him, to carry their memories beyond the crumbling walls and into the light of remembrance. Time lost meaning in his encroaching obsession. Hours turned into days, and each night, he found himself dreaming not of peace, but of chaos, the shadows of Dachau encapsulating his soul. He began spending whole days within the confines of the barracks, navigating the corridors where so many had received their last breaths. The whispers grew louder, urging him to listen, to record, to share. But as the days unfurled, Walter began to grapple with something deeper, a growing dread that intertwined with his passion. The whispering grew frantic, clamoring for his attention. "You need to bear witness," they cried, their anguished tones rippling through the space. But as he listened, the darkness cast shadows deeper and darker. The wails of the past began to merge with the silence of the present. Walter felt the sharp pang of fear. Would he become consumed by these haunted souls? The air grew thick around him, and he began to experience hallucinations, flashes of anguish, as former prisoners wandered the campgrounds, their faces consumed with torment. It was as if the very earth beneath his feet groaned with the weight of forgotten histories, the cries vibrating within the dirt, the blood, and the dust. In the grip of despair, he realized he was no longer just an observer. He was a conduit for their stories. The diary had not only opened a window into the past, it had ensnared him in its net, a desperate plea echoing in his mind. The need to be remembered was becoming a haunting and unshakable burden. As he inexplicably slipped further into this otherworldly connection, Walter felt the shadows surrounding him tighten. Laughter mingled with cries of torment, merging into a horrific symphony that called to him. "Remember us," the voices pleaded once more, a desperate crescendo. With a gasp, Walter released the diary, his heart heavy with the weight of loss. Struggling to escape, he stumbled toward the exit, feeling the shimmering veil of the past closing around him, the boundaries of his existence blurring in the dimming light. But the voices clawed at him, reaching, stretching across time. He could see the faces, their expressions frozen in desolation, as he made his way to the gates. Walter emerged from the barracks, shaken to his core, feeling like he had just returned from a nightmare that he could not comprehend. The gray sky loomed above him, casting ominous shadows across the campgrounds. The whispers had quieted, replaced by the sounds of the wind rustling through the trees, a fleeting reminder of what he had left behind. But Walter knew he could never truly leave. He had become a vessel for stories too dark to forget. As he walked away from Dachau, the old diary felt like an anchor, heavy in his backpack. It became a symbol of remembrance, a promise to honor those who suffered beneath the iron fist of tyranny. He vowed to carry their stories into the light, framing the shadows that had threatened to envelop him. Yet, as he drove away, an unsettling dread settled over him, like an invisible weight pressing against his chest. The encounters and glimpses into the past haunted him now, a reminder that history's scars lingered just beneath the surface, ready to erupt at any moment. The spirits had charged him with a mission, and he felt the unmistakable yearning that he must keep their memory alive. The realization that he was forever changed crept upon him, leaving Walter with an inescapable burden, the urgency of remembrance, and the chilling door now opened between the living and the lost. But Walter is not the only one who has been touched by the spirits of Dachau. Next, we meet a visitor who faced the darkness head on and found the line between life and afterlife much thinner than expected. Step into the world of Sarah, a brave young soldier on a remembrance mission, who is about to uncover the intertwining threads of history and hauntings that ripple through the memorial grounds. What will she discover about her grandfather's past? And how will it forge a connection between generations in ways she never anticipated? Story tutored. The soldier's return. Meet Sarah, a young soldier recently returned from a deployment overseas. As the granddaughter of a WWII veteran, her life has always been marked by tales of bravery and sacrifice, the haunting images of war fueling her sense of duty. Today, she embarks on a solemn journey to Dachau, the infamous concentration camp that oversaw the captive lives of many during one of the darkest chapters in history. Standing before the camp gates, Sarah's heart pounds heavily in her chest, a fusion of honor and dread coursing through her veins. The heavy iron gates loom like sentinels, holding secrets long buried beneath the surface. The air is thick with unspoken fear, punctuated by the distant rustle of leaves in a chilling breeze. She grips her backpack tightly, half expecting to feel the reassuring presence of the military, a shared camaraderie in confronting the hard truths of their history. As she steps through the gates, remnants of the past envelop her. Ghostly shadows swirl in her peripheral vision, and for a moment, she feels time slip away, the present merging with memories of a world at war. This place, full of sorrow and suffering, seems to resonate with an inexplicable energy, drawing her deeper into its mysteries. There's a strange connection at play here, as if invisible threads tie her to the history unfolding around her. With every footstep, she senses the weight of countless sacrifices made, and a curious tether pulls her toward a hidden path that snakes away from the main exhibit. Deciding to follow her instincts, Sarah finds herself walking along the unmarked trail. The silence is profound, almost suffocating, a stark contrast to the echoing footsteps she imagines were once filled with fear and desperation. As she trudges along, the trees close in around her, creating a sanctuary of shadows, their branches intertwining like the fates of so many souls who passed this way long ago. Suddenly, her gaze falls on something peculiar, a slight rise in the ground marked by a simple stone. As she approaches, her heart quickens. It's an unmarked grave, overgrown with weeds and earth. A chill runs down her spine as she kneels beside it, the gravity of the place weighing upon her. She brushes away the greenery, revealing the faint inscription barely visible on the fragile stone. It reads, "Unknown Soldier." Tears well in her eyes. What stories could this grave tell? Who was he? And what burden had he borne? As dusk begins to descend, an eerie stillness settles over Dachau, the ethereal glow of the moon breaking through a dense canopy of clouds. It's then that the first spectral presence makes itself known. A flickering light dances at the edge of the clearing, pulling her closer. Nervous yet captivated, Sarah feels compelled to follow. Vague, ghostly figures emerge from the shadows, their forms flickering like candle flames in the dark. She freezes, feeling as if she's stepped into a surreal tableau. Ghostly soldiers and prisoners engage in what appears to be a spectral reenactment of a battle long since fought. A chaotic blend of anguish and rage pulsates in the air. Caught in this haunting performance, Sarah witnesses a young man clad in the remnants of a tattered uniform, caught between duty and his conscience. His hollow eyes reveal a deep torment, as if he struggles with the weight of the past. As he advances through the haunting landscape, his hands reach out, trembling with unshared burdens. She feels his pain echoing within her own heart, a sorrowful call for recognition. "Can you help me?" he whispers, his voice barely a breath against the night air. "Can you make them remember?" Overwhelmed, Sarah's heart wells with empathy. She recognizes in his gaze an undeniable connection to her grandfather. Did he, too, wrestle with choices that haunted him? Choices made not just on the battlefield, but also in the face of moral dilemmas that felt insurmountable. The energy around her grows palpable. Fragments of conversations from long-gone soldiers and civilians intertwine, fill the air around her. She sees memories flickering like candlelight, and as they form into coherent narratives, she learns of the weight of their experiences with each story. The past and present intertwine, healing and haunting her soul. With a flutter of dread, Sarah's thoughts drift back to her grandfather's stories, the chilling recollections of his time in Europe, the horrors he witnessed. Tales of liberation laced with guilt. Could it be that Dachau was a place where he'd grappled with unthinkable choices? The lines between past and present blend, and Sarah feels herself sinking deeper into the fabric of time. Emotional turmoil builds within her, the soldier's anguished pleas, fraying the edges of her calm facade. She feels compelled to bear his story to the world, to shed light on the ghostly battles fought within her grandfather's heart and those who stood beside him. Torn between honoring history and her own trepidation, Sarah wrestles with how much a descendant can hold the weight of the past. As the night deepens, the spectral figures begin to fade away, retreating into the darkness like wisps of smoke. The young soldier's gaze lingers on her, heavy with gratitude and sorrow. "Remember us," he implores, words like knife cuts against her skin, "make them understand our pain." "No, I won't forget," Sarah whispers back, tears streaming down her cheeks, the ghosts imprinted on her heart. She understands now that history isn't just a collection of dates and events. It is a living tapestry woven from emotions and memories, a testimony to the resilience of the human spirit. With a heavy heart, Sarah watches as the spectral scene dissipates, leaving her alone in the hushed silence of Dachau. The shadows of the past linger in the air, pervading her thoughts. She knows that she must honor the soldier's memory, and the countless lost. She is a bridge between generations, a vessel of their untold stories, tasked with keeping their legacy alive. As she ascends from the unmarked grave, Sarah feels the pulse of the earth, invigorated yet burdened by an intensity she cannot shake. The resolve within her solidifies. She'll return home to share the stories she carries, transforming her encounters into a testament of remembrance. The haunted night lingers in Sarah's mind as she walks back toward the camp gates. Every step feels heavier, burdened by the stories she now holds close. The memories she carries transcend time, and she resolves to give voice to the silenced history of Dachau, ensuring it reverberates for all who hear her. Days pass as she grapples with the emotional aftermath of her experience. Back at her unit, Sarah writes feverishly, pouring her heart into a narrative that intertwines the memories of her grandfather with those of the ghostly soldier who entrusted her with his pain. She unveils their stories, filled with bravery, remorse, and the haunting echoes of choices made in desperation. And as she shares her work with fellow soldiers and her community back home, a transformation begins to take root. Each retelling sparks conversations, igniting curiosity among those who know little about the darkness held within Dachau's walls. In this way, She honors both her grandfather and the lost souls she encountered. Before long, Sarah becomes an ambassador of sorts for memory and history, organizing events to ensure the stories of Dachau and those who suffered are remembered. Yet, even in the midst of success, a sense of grief remains within her, a bittersweet reminder of the soldiers' pain. As she gazes into the moonlit sky at night, thoughts often drift back to Dachau and its restless spirits. There's a beauty in remembrance, a shared heartbeat echoing through time, yet the weight of sorrow lingers. She knows her life has been forever changed. She carries with her the heartbeats of those who once suffered, now intertwined with her own. But what happens when the past comes crashing into the present, as seen through the eyes of those who never experienced the horror within the camp? Let's explore the tale of a young girl whose life becomes intertwined with the otherworldly after a chilling encounter at Dachau. Story 3. The Girl in the Shadows. Under the low, hanging clouds of a late autumn afternoon, Lisa, a local teenager, sat on the crumbling edge of the Dachau grounds, her eyes gazing wistfully into the fading light. Stories of the past had always fascinated her, but the history of Dachau resonated differently, haunting her thoughts in ways she couldn't quite articulate. Here, where the air was laden with sorrow and unspoken words, Lisa felt an inexplicable pull toward the camp. The tall grass, once carefully manicured, had now overtaken the pathways, creating an eerie wilderness where shadows played tricks on her mind. She often visited the camp, drawn by an insatiable curiosity about its dark legacy. One afternoon, as she wandered through a neglected barrack, something caught her eye: a tiny, weathered shoe, faded from its original color, half buried in the dirt. The sight sent a shiver down her spine. It was a remnant of a forgotten child, a silent witness to the unspeakable horrors that unfolded here. That night, as the winds howled outside her window, Lisa dreamt of a girl, a palpable sense of yearning drawing them together. "Follow me," the girl whispered, her voice almost drowned in the wind. Curiosity ignited within Lisa, and with that simple invitation, she was unwittingly swept into a world where past and present would collide, and where the weight of history would soon rest heavily upon her heart. In the dream, the world around Lisa transformed. She no longer stood in her bedroom, but in the same barrack she had explored earlier, now eerily vivid and alive. The walls, once crumbling with neglect, were adorned with faded drawings and makeshift beds lined with thin, worn blankets. The overpowering scent of damp wood and despair clung to the air, a wall of emotion that seemed to hang over everything like a thick fog. "Who are you?" Lisa finally managed to utter, her voice trembling as she faced the apparition of the girl. She appeared to be around her age, perhaps a little younger, with sunken cheeks and wide, fearful eyes. The girl wore a rag dress, which flowed awkwardly down her thin frame. Despite her tattered appearance, there was an undeniable strength in her gaze. "I'm Hannah," the girl replied softly, eyes brimming with unspent tears. "I need you to see what happened here." With that, Hannah reached out, her fingers brushing against Lisa's hand. A current shot through Lisa at the touch, a sudden jolt of warmth that dissipated as quickly as it had come. Then, as if pulled by an unseen force, Lisa found herself walking beside Hannah, moving through and around overlapping memories and visions of the past. The two girls floated through the bustling barracks, watching scenes unfold before them. They witnessed children playing in carefree laughter, their innocence untouched by the horrors lurking outside. Lisa's heart ached as she felt the warmth of camaraderie that enveloped the children. A fleeting sense of happiness soon overshadowed by the cold grip of reality. The dreams progressed, revealing scenes of darkness that turned her insides to ice. Lisa saw prisoners being herded into the camp, their faces a reflection of terror and confusion. They clutched one another, hoping for comfort in the midst of despair. Mothers searched for missing children among the crowd, and fathers were torn from their families in the most horrifying of circumstances. As Hannah guided Lisa through the dreamscape, she narrated their shared stories, painting a portrait of innocence lost amid the brutality. "We didn't understand at first," We thought it was just a place to go for safety, Hannah recounted, her voice growing stronger with each word. But those walls held more than just our bodies. They held our hopes and dreams, and even those were taken from us. They made us forget how to be children. A visceral wave of anger and sadness washed over Lisa with every horrifying realization. The stark transition from the joyful ladder of children to despair struck her like a debilitating force. The weight of their stories became tangible, embedding itself deep within her heart. "Why are you showing me this?" Lisa asked, her voice breaking with emotion. "How can I help?" "No one remembers," Hannah whispered. "The world has forgotten our stories, the lives that were shattered. We don't want to be ghosts lost to time, but we need someone to hear us." The landscape shifted again, taking Lisa to the heart of the darkest memories, the infamous crematorium, its skeletal remains looming ominously against the starlit sky. The air thickened with the smell of smoke, and a chilling despair surrounded them. Hannah guided Lisa through the haunting silence, revealing whispers of the lost souls who had passed through these very doors. As they emerged from the darkness of the building, Lisa was flung into a whirlwind of emotions, riding the waves of fear and grief. She could almost hear their cries, the desperate pleas for life, and the silence that followed. The energy of the unburdened spirits passed through her, and without warning, the laughter of children echoed back in her mind, sauntering through the abyss and interlacing with the weeping of mothers. "Do you see?" Hannah asked, her voice now laden with urgency. "They are here, and they are waiting for someone to speak for them. You must remember, and you must share it. They deserve to be honored, not forgotten." Torn between adrenaline and fear, Lisa's heart raced as the dream shifted again, revealing the day the camp was liberated. The atmosphere sang of hope, a cacophony of emotions that confused her, bringing warmth after unimaginable cold. However, it did not erase the pain. Instead, the cries of the past seemed to intertwine with the exhilaration of freedom. "It was a bittersweet moment," Hannah said, her voice heavy with sadness. "We were saved, but so many were lost. We became records of the past, names in a list, memories entrusted to those too wounded to tell our truths." The dream began to dissolve, swirling around them like a storm. Lisa grasped hold of Hannah's hand in desperation. "Wait, what is your story? I need to know your name. I want to tell everyone about you." Hannah's form began to fade, a glimmering silhouette battling against the growing darkness. "My name is etched in time, but my story need not become a whisper in the shadows. Remember, Lisa, share it all. I will always be with you." With one last flicker, the dream shattered, launching Lisa back into her room. The sound of her heart thumped loudly in her ears, and she gasped for breath. Morning light streamed in through her curtains, bathing the room in warmth that felt utterly foreign after the chilling experience of the night. The weight of the encounter settled upon her, an inescapable truth that unlocked her spirit. It wasn't just a dream, it was a calling. The lost would not be forgotten if she had anything to say about it. Determined and fueled by newfound purpose, Lisa spent the following weeks researching Dachau, poring over old documents, survivor testimonies, and accounts that echoed the stories Hannah had shared. The haunting imagery and emotional weight remained with her, and it became clear she had to honor what Hannah had entrusted to her. At school, she began to share Hannah's story, incorporating into her history presentations and discussions. Lisa urged her classmates to delve deeper, to recognize the importance of acknowledging history and its lingering effects on the present. The ghostly threads linking past to present became a resonating theme that transformed the way they viewed the camp and its legacy. The day came for Lisa's final presentation in front of her classmates and teachers. She stood confidently, her heart racing, not with fear but with purpose. Pictures of the camp's past flickered on the projector as she narrated Hannah's experiences, conjuring the laughter of children, the sorrow of lost lives, and the spirit of resilience that echoed through every brick. As she finished, silence filled the room, and Lisa saw tears glistening in her listeners' eyes. It was not just her story. It was the story of countless lost along the crooked path of history, a visceral reminder of human endurance and the need for remembrance. Leaving the classroom, Lisa felt lighter, the shadows of doubt and fear replaced by a radiant warmth. She had weaved a bond with the spirits of the past, forever honored the girl she had met in the shadows. As the weight of Hannah's story settled into her beautifully intertwined memories, Lisa soon realized she would never be alone. She had become a part of something greater, an echoing testament to resilience, truth, and remembrance. But Lisa's tale is not the only echo of Dachau that reverberates through time. The boundaries between the living and those who have passed on can often blur in the most unexpected ways. One final story shrouded in mystery and truth awaits us. Join us as we delve into the sensitive and often chilling interactions that occur when the living confront the restless souls of the past. It became a journey for truth-seeking Tom, a paranormal investigator who entered Dachau with heavy expectations and left with a greater understanding of those lost in its haunted embrace, revealing how some spirits have waited decades to finally be acknowledged. Stay with us as we uncover the tale of the Guardian of Dachau. Story 4 True. The Guardian of Dachau. As night descended upon Dachau, Tom, a seasoned paranormal investigator, stepped under the shadowy arches of the infamous camp, clutching his camera and audio recording equipment like a shield. The moon hung large and luminous above him, casting silvery beams onto the cracked concrete, illuminating the ghostly contours of a place steeped in pain and remembrance. An unyielding chill pierced the night air, a sharp reminder of the ghosts that lingered among the dilapidated buildings and rusting fences. Tom had dedicated his life to uncovering the truths hidden in history's dark corners. With each flick of his flashlight, he hoped to illuminate the stories of those who suffered so that they might not be forgotten. Dachau was infamous for its grim legacy, and he felt drawn to its horrors as if the spirits themselves beckoned him to reveal their tales. Setting up near the crematorium, he felt an unsettling presence. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying whispers that seemed to hitch a ride on the cool gusts. He positioned his recorder, hoping to capture any residual echoes from the spirits trapped in both time and despair. "I am here to listen," he murmured into the stillness, feeling a rush of apprehension intertwine with his resolve. The air thickened, and a shadow seemed to flit just beyond the range of his light. Tom began his exploration of the camp, the sounds of his equipment clicking and whirring echoing unsettlingly against the oppressive silence around him. He felt a profound pull toward the places where the most atrocities occurred, scenes of sorrow and anguish that echoed long after the physical bodies had been removed. The crematorium loomed ahead, a grim monument to lost lives, where the past felt tactile, palpable, as though the very walls held tight to the memories they witnessed. His audio recorder crackled to life, capturing the faintest of whispers. "Help us," the indistinct voice seemed to weave into the cold night. Tom's pulse quickened. He turned to face the direction of the sound but saw only darkness. "Who are you?" he called out tentatively. The atmosphere thickened, as if the night itself held its breath in response. Guided by the peculiar energy resonating in this place of sorrow, Tom headed to the barracks, where hundreds had once crowded together, brimming with fear and despair. As he stepped inside, his breath seemed to fog in the chill. A dim light flickered on his camera, dancing with shadows cast by the ruined bunks. That's when he saw her, a faint figure flitting just outside his camera's lens. "Is someone there?" he asked, a mix of dread and curiosity surging through him. Her figure, shimmering and gossamer-like, stepped closer. Tom's heart raced as he focused the lens on her delicate features. She looked no older than 12, her hollow cheeks giving her a haunting beauty, marred by the cruel realities she had endured. The girl's mouth moved in silent pleas, desperation reflecting in her wide, sorrowful eyes that were anchors to an unfathomable past. "Nobody remembers us," she finally whispered, her voice like a wisp of smoke. A sickly longing laced her tone, pulling Tom into her despair. "Tell me your story," Tom urged, his voice barely loud enough to break through the coldness enveloping them. Suddenly, the scene around him shifted. Through the camera lens, Tom glimpsed a flash of memories unfolding: the girl, with scraggly, matted hair, holding hands with friends, laughing as they stamped through the snow, oblivious to the encroaching darkness. Then, he saw the shadows that loomed closer, morphing into grotesque forms that sought to control their lives. He felt the weight of her fears, the friendship that unraveled into chaos as the camp's cruel machinations unfurled. Each echo pulled him deeper into the narratives that played out before him. It was as if the very ground beneath him was alive with the history of innocent lives ravaged by the throes of hatred and greed. Tom followed the girl as she led him through the imagery of their last day, the smell of smoke in the air, the urgency, and the fear radiating from the prisoners who had once walked these grounds. Tom was jolted back to reality when another presence emerged: a soldier, his figure more robust and vivid, mirroring the girl's transparency. The soldier's gaze was heavy, laden with regret, his uniform poorly maintained, but his posture rigid. "You shouldn't be here," the soldier declared, his voice barely louder than a whisper, yet commanding in its urgency. "Why? I want to help you," Tom replied, his resolve strengthening in the face of adversity. "Help us." The soldier frowned, his expression darkening. "How can you help when you do not know what we've done? We wear the sins of our actions. The weight is unbearable." Tom could see the torment etched into the soldier's features. He seemed frozen between two worlds, bound by duty yet plagued by the darkness he'd witnessed. The soldier's spectral form flickered, intertwining with memories of the prisoners, showing Tom the horror of lives snuffed out in the span of moments. "I didn't know," Tom stammered, feeling empathy swallow him whole. "But I want to understand. To remember." "Remember, yes," the soldier echoed solemnly, his eyes narrowing as the darkness tightened like a noose. "But can you bear the truth when it is laid bare before you?" Tom nodded, encouraged by the invisible threads of connection pulling at his heart. As he began to understand the weight of guilt the soldier carried, he realized the more profound the knowledge, the more burdened he becomes. An all-consuming dread seeped into his consciousness, echoing the anguish borne by the souls trapped in this purgatory of remembrance. With each revelation, Tom faced the harsh realities that history buried beneath layers of forgetfulness. He collected their stories, their tragedies, their collective cries for justice. But as the haunting voices mingled with the cacophony of despair, Tom could feel the shadows begin to close around him. It grew harder to breathe as the oppressive weight of their anguish bore down. "You do not belong here," the soldier urged again, an eerie kind of urgency returning to his voice. "You must remember, but only if you are willing to carry the weight. As long as you live, it cannot die with you." The air thickened, as if the spirits exerted a final push against the living. Suddenly, the ground rumbled, and shadows danced upon the edges, threatening to consume him. Tom's heart raced, and dread surged within him. He needed to escape but felt bound by the stories he'd uncovered, and the spirits that awaited acknowledgement. In a desperate act of defiance, he grabbed his recorder. "I will remember you. I will make sure others hear your stories," as if in response. The shadows coalesced into swirling tendrils, swirling around him as the spirit of the girl reached out, her translucent hand brushing against his as he felt a mix of relief and torment. "Then you bear our truth a heavy burden." Her voice was clear now, resonating through the oppressive night. Then, with a sudden snap, the atmospheric grip loosened. The specters dimmed, stepping back as if relieved yet sorrowful. Tom stumbled back, a single tear glistening on his cheek as he felt the impact of profound loss crash over him like waves. Tom left Dachau with more than just recordings and footage. He was now a conduit for the spirits who desperately longed to be recognized. Each whisper he had captured echoed in his mind, an ever-present reminder of the souls who had suffered and yearned for acknowledgement. This experience had changed him, had driven a thorn deep into his heart. He drove away but felt the weight of the camp, still hovering just beyond the horizon. Dachau, with its dark history, stained by blood and haunting despair. Yet as he departed, he also carried with him the hope that he could bridge the gap between their past and his present, ensuring their stories were preserved. "Remember us," he whispered into the night, the chilling wind seeming to carry his promise to the resting spirits. He knew the journey ahead would be steep with challenges, but he held a newfound purpose to awaken the world to the history buried in the shadows. As Tom processed the flicker of energy left behind, he realized that the guardian of Dachau wasn't just a solitary figure. It was an unwavering collective of countless souls, bound together by shared torment, waiting to share their resilient stories with the living. With that promise etched in his heart, he knew he couldn't escape their legacy. He was part of it now, walking between two worlds as a guardian himself. As we reflect on the haunting narratives shared through Walter, Sarah, Lisa, and Tom, we find that the stories of Dachau are not merely echoes of the past. They are powerful reminders of the very real suffering, bravery, and sacrifice endured within those barbed wire fences. Each tale we've explored today, intertwined through time and space, serves as a poignant testament to the lives lost and the dangers of forgetting history. Walter leaves bearing the emotional weight of the diary. Sarah vows to honor her grandfather's legacy. Lisa is transformed by her connection to a girl from the past, and Tom becomes a channel for spirits seeking acknowledgement. These encounters remind us that remembrance is vital. Forgotten histories have a way of haunting us, intertwining with our present, urging us to listen to the voices that cry out from the shadows. They compel us, as a society, to confront uncomfortable truths and ensure that such horrors are never repeated. The stories are not just about the past, they resonate in our hearts and minds, shaping our lives and choices today. Now, we invite you, our viewers, to share your own thoughts and reflections. Has history ever echoed in your own life? Have you felt the heavy hand of the past guiding your present? Whether through personal experiences or historical connections, your insights matter. Join the conversation in the comments below. As we walk away from Dachau, let us remember, the echoes of the past never truly fade. There may always be whispers lingering in the shadows, urging us to honor those who suffered, to acknowledge their stories, and to reflect upon the choices we make today. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey through the haunted corridors of history. If these tales of the spectral and the significant captured your imagination, please like this video and share it with others who share an interest in history and the supernatural. For more ghost stories unveiling the shadows of our past, subscribe to our channel and stay tuned as we continue to explore the eerie narratives that shape our world.